Good afternoon, everybody. We're working through a couple technical things. We'll get started in just a minute. Good afternoon, everybody. I'd like to call this meeting on January 9th, 1 o'clock. The cybersecurity task force to order. Shereen, can you take the roll for us?
Tim Robb,
Here.
Bob Denhart,
Present.
Frank Avella,
Here.
Paul Embley,
I'm on the call.
David Fogerson,
Present.
Sanford Graves, Jeffrey Lewis,
Present.
Tim Horgan. Somebody was just signing on. I'll come back to Tim. Andrew Petroni,
Present.
Akeem Patel,
Present.
Brandon Peterson, General Pearl,
Present.
Sandy Rubellin, Sandy, are you present? She's waving.
He is waiting.
She is waving. Problems with Mike. Billy Samuels,
Present.
James Wood,
Present.
Tim Horgan, were you able to connect?
Present.
You have quorum.
Thank you very much. We'll move into our first period of public comment. As a reminder, no action may be taken under a matter raised under this item. And the call-in information for public comment is included in the agenda. Do we have any public comment in the room?
Chair Dave Fogerson.
Go ahead, Dave.
So we just heard back late last week from Department of Homeland Security on the cybersecurity state and local tribal territorial grant process. They have accepted our grant. However, it is on hold while they review and continue to approve the draft cybersecurity plan that we submitted. And then there's a couple other technical details that we're working through with them in the process. So hopefully in at least another month or so, we should hear back from CISA and DHS on whether that plan gets approved. Then we can start moving the grant process forward. Sir.
Thank you very much, Chief. Is there any public comment on the phone? Star 6 to unmute yourself if you're on the phone and have public. And we'll let the YouTube catch up by about 30 seconds to make sure that anybody watching on there may be able to give their public comment. If none, I think we can move on to item number 3, approval of the minutes. Is there any discussion on the minutes that were sent out by staff? By the members? Okay, I would take a motion to approve minutes.
Tim Horgan, so moved.
Thank you. We have a second.
Dave Fogerson seconds.
Thank you, Dave. All those in favor of passing minutes from the last meeting on December 2nd, 2022, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. We'll move on to item number 4, the reactive and preventative posture for cybersecurity within Nevada. I'll pass that over to Chief Overson.
Thank you, sir. Dave Overson for the record. The next 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 agenda items are all kind of interrelated. One of the things that we did with creating this task force was to try to unify all the different cybersecurity components through the state and local and private sectors. And that was required from the grant. And so we wanted to kind of talk today about who does what and how they do it. And the slide I have for everyone to look at, if we can share a screen. We actually stole from another state's cybersecurity plan when they gave us a copy of it. And I think it does a good idea about who's in charge of what and how we do stuff in Nevada. Really, if we look at cyber, the cybersecurity world looks at, there's 2 sides to this, the prevention side and the reaction side. And we look at the prevention side, that really is the bailiwick for all their cybersecurity professionals, whether it be EATS at a local government, at Office of Cyber Defense and Coordination for the state, system with their cybersecurity advisor, all the state information security officers in each of the departments. All those things are working on every day to make sure that our computer systems are safe. And that's their role. And then you add into that also the fusion centers with helping to get intelligence to the right people on issues. And then DEM has a small piece of that with those cybersecurity grants and our Homeland Security grants. So that prevention side really, when we start thinking about it, really is the day-to-day work that that group does. Every day they show up to work to keep our cyber programs safe, whether it's James Wood in Washoe County or it's somebody at the Secretary of State's office. Then we have that cybersecurity task force kind of there as the balancing beam, because then we go to the reaction side. And when we go to the reaction side, that means we're now in consequence management. Something bad has occurred and we need to be able to lean forward and fix and help those things. And obviously we're going to have that cyber fix that has to be done to make sure that we can turn everything back on. But then we also have the consequence management piece of, so we say we have some kind of an attack and it takes all the traffic lights and turns them to green throughout the state of Nevada. So now we have the cyber folks working on that, but then we also need to get law enforcement working on traffic control with Department of Transportation and Public Works. We need to probably support hospitals because of the number of traffic accidents we get as a result of that. We need to work on all those other consequence management pieces. So on the reaction side, we have the Division of Emergency Management really is the lead on the reaction side. And we do this through a policy group and through our operations center. The policy group reports to the governor, and that's going to be the director from each of the state agencies that are engaged with the incident. Like right now, we're actually open as an operations center with a planning group for the flood. And so we have representatives from DCNR, from emergency management, from the governor's office and the office of the military, all working together to have that planning group, policy group to provide information back to the governor. And in the operations centers where we actually get all the folks there to help coordinate those activities. And one of the presentations later on, we're going to talk about those emergency support functions, whether it's ESF2, which is communication IT, whether it's 14, that's cross business and infrastructure, whether it's 16, the Nevada National Guard, whether the piece of that reaction as well from some of their capabilities that they're standing up and talk about, or 17, where we're looking at the cybersecurity, where we are tying the Office of Cyber Defense Coordination, the state's chief information security officer, along with the fusion centers together to help on that cybersecurity side, and then our local emergency operations center. So when I saw this in somebody else's plan, I thought this was a good way to explain who it is, because one of the things that we all are worried about whenever we start doing new stuff is lanes, and whose lane is it, and who's in charge of what, and how we work better together. And so hopefully this meeting will kind of go through the different people that have the big pieces, at least at this first stage of the game. And then in future meetings, and we can start diving in a little deeper with more organizations on how this all works together. So that way everybody understands the lanes of travel and that we are all in this together. This has to be collaborative, this has to be cooperative, this has to be a nice process where we have built that trust between all of us to be able to solve the problems, whether it's the grant funding problem or the consequence management piece when something bad happens. So the more that we know, the better off we're gonna be in the end. I'll take any questions, Chair.
Thank you very much, Chief. I've been looking forward to this meeting to be able to talk about all the capabilities and all of the coordination pieces that are coming together. It looks like Billy has a question. Go ahead, Billy.
Thanks, Tim. This question is for Dave. This is Billy Samuels. Regarding the ESF 14, are you going to keep it under that? Is that what you expect it to be? Or are you going to put it like under 13 for public safety and security? That's kind of where cybersecurity could fit. Or are you going to give it its own at 17?
At the state level, we've given it its own at 17 and has been, I believe, for a while. And John's going to talk about that a little later on today in another agenda item. But yeah, that's always kind of been its own standalone ESF here at the State Operations Center.
Copy that. That was my question. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Billy. Is there any other questions from members of the task force? Awesome. Well, thank you very much, Chief. Appreciate the overview. Let's move on to agenda item number 5, Office of Cyber Defense. Mr. Patel, go ahead.
Oh, thank you. I think I'd sent some slides over. I'm not sure if you can share those, but
Looks like Shane's working on that right now.
okay. Yeah, I just want to talk a little bit about what my office is and how it differs from the other cybersecurity groups in the state. But yeah, so the Office of Cyber Defense Coordination, our official mission is to serve as the focal point for cybersecurity strategy, policy, planning, and coordination for all the entities that exist within the state of Nevada. It's the scope is very broad based on the statutes. But the way I see us differing from all the other entities, yeah, if you want to go ahead to the next slide. The way I see us differing from all the other entities is that we are not a group with an operational cybersecurity responsibility. Like, we're not responsible for any one specific entity's cybersecurity plan. We're kind of focused on coordinating cybersecurity in a way that every entity can take advantage of. We have a few programs to start off. That I came to the office recently, and these are the programs that currently exist with the office. We've started up doing a bi-weekly cybersecurity threat briefing, trying to focus the intelligence on items that are relevant to the entities in Nevada, including threats that we see specifically for us and threats for technologies and items that we use within the state. We're working on the incident response plan repository as mandated by NRS 480.35, 480.935, and we work with the governor's office and the National Guard on doing incident response coordination. Yeah, so we have a lot of plans coming up on how to improve what we can do to help the other groups out, and we're planning on starting up a lot of programs and services based on, budget and staffing that we can go ahead and get approved. We're looking at, I don't have any specifics here yet because no program has been approved and started yet, but these are kind of the areas where we're going to focus on how we can help out for the entities that wish to take advantage of that. Like, nothing we do is going to be obligated or required unless it's mandated by one of the NRS statutes. But we plan on offering a lot of options and tools for other groups to be able to take advantage of, should they choose to do so, if it fits into their own cybersecurity plans. Next slide. Yeah, so I have my contact information up there. That was like a pretty brief summary of what we do in the OCDC, but feel free to reach out if you have ideas and ways that we can help as I'm building out our programs, things that you would love to see statewide. And I'm actually pretty happy to share what I'm planning on and what I intend to get done as I start getting approval for my different projects and programs. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Akin. I think I would echo his welcome to the local governments and ensure that they're coordinated with him and his office. I think there's a lot of opportunity there. Does anybody have any questions for Akin and the Office of Cyber Defense Coordination? Well, just want to reiterate the awesome resource that he and his team are to the state and the local government partners that we have, and building that capacity within their organizations to ensure that they're ready for any threat that may be coming their way. I think with that, we can close out agenda item number 5 and move to number 6. And that is Critical Infrastructure and Cybersecurity Administration, CISA, the State Cybersecurity Advisor, and I will pass it over to Dr. Rick Hayes.
Good afternoon. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it. Is there any chance that I can get my slides presented up the same way Akin's were, please? Is that possible?
Yes.
There we go. You guys are awesome. Thank you so much. So my name's Rick Hayes. I'm the Region 9, which includes Nevada, California, Arizona, Hawaii, Guam, Philippines. Well, not Philippines. American Samoas. That's all part of our region. My role is the cybersecurity coordinator and acting CSA to support the state of Nevada. Next slide, please. On through my agenda real quick, just an introduction of my position, role, purpose, and the vision that I have for 2023 within Nevada. Next slide. So my role there is to support the state, as I am acting as the CSA as well as the CISA, Cybersecurity State Coordinator. My role began back in August of 2021. It's a new position, new program, been standing that up, working with pretty much everybody who's going to be speaking today, partnering with the state for all critical infrastructure and all matter cybersecurity. Biggest point is I want to be able to inform and do these assessments that we're working up, and I'll get a little bit into that. Billy was asking earlier about ESF 17, so I'm assisting with the development on that program, especially as it faces cyber risk management and incident response for cyber. Next slide, please. Continuing that introduction of the position. So my focus is really for this 2023 is going to be on assessments. It's really about the 5 stages of the NIST cybersecurity framework as we come to understand the identify and protect portion in the assessment. So that will help us there so we can continue on with the detect, respond, and recover phases as we go through incident response. To continue with that incident response plan development with all of the government and critical infrastructure that I'm working with across the state to make sure that they have one, and even assess it if they do have one. If they don't, help them in developing one. The next key point that I'm focusing on is assisting with the adherence to NRS 603 Alpha, specifically the 210 portion dealing with security measures, as we look at how are those security controls being managed via CIS or NIST RMF, and helping them to understand the big picture of that as they work through their own processes for that. Not sure if there's a consolidated base where all that information is getting reported, but I'm sure that'll come along during the year. And then ultimately, tabletop exercises. One of the key points for everyone I would like to remind you all of is that our PCII requirements, where we're protecting that critical infrastructure information, on these assessments. So I do not share that information outside of that organization. So if someone feels like they should be getting that information or being made aware of that, they'll have to address that with whoever it is that's being assessed. Kind of a key point there. Next slide, please. And with that, I'll take any questions. Next slide. There's our contact info. No questions? Awesome. Well, thank you for the time. If you have anything you'd like to have me assist you with, please don't be afraid to reach out to me directly, and I'll be glad to support. Thank you for the time.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Dr. Hayes. Is there any quick questions before we move on? Sorry, we were coming off of mute. Well, we really appreciate the partnership and ensuring that we're ready to go when there is a challenge. I look forward to seeing those assessments and kind of building out what our next steps are to ensure that we're able to make sure we're putting our best foot forward in Nevada, based on what you're finding in those rec center infrastructure. So with that, I think we can close out agenda item number 6, move to agenda item number 7. We have Bob Denhart, our Chief Information Security Officer, to give us a quick overview of the Nevada Enterprise Information Technology position within our cybersecurity infrastructure.
Thank you. Can I get my slides up, please? You were already working on it. Thanks for the opportunity, everyone, to present this. I'm going to be talking about the office that I'm in charge of, the Office of Information Security. I'm not going to read you the slides because, you know, everyone here I think can read. But I do want to highlight a few things that are in them. The Office of Information Security is responsible for coordination of governance and processes for security within the executive branch. We have a fairly tightly defined scope of responsibility and area where we can be active. We try to work beyond that as much as we legally can, simply because, you know, it's said in just about every one of these meetings, security is a team sport and we're stronger together. The more minds, the more people, the more voices we have involved in this, and the more cooperation we have between entities, the better off we all are. So, you know, I really take that to heart. That sort of fits in with my office because while we have that responsibility, as is standard in government, we have almost no authority. We can't compel anyone to do anything or issue orders or anything like that. We work through cooperation, and so that's one of my my primary tools in my toolbox. Next slide, please. So, you know, our mission is centered around collaboration and partnerships, working with the other executive branch agencies. We also do have an operational element to our office in that we do provide some enterprise level tools and services to the other executive branch agencies. Do that wherever it makes sense to leverage the economies of scale and get the best tools that we can for the budget that we have. Next slide, please. Our values, I felt it was important to put this slide in because it really speaks to how I feel anyways, any security program needs to be run. It has to start with integrity. You build relationships based on trust and honesty and accountability, because when these bad stuff hits the fan, everyone needs all hands on deck and all that. You can't be questioning anyone else's motives or what they're trying to accomplish or anything like that. You have to hit the ground running. And so integrity really is a key component, as is innovation. Lord knows the adversaries out there are trying new things all the time. We have to continually look at the tools that we have, where we can upgrade them, what new functions or features we need, where we need to be looking. You know, everything we do is subject to change as a moment's notice. So we have to always be looking to innovate. And then, of course, collaboration and partnership. That's a core function. You know, we need to work beyond silos and understand everyone's goals and work together to push things forward. Next slide, please. I want to list some of the things that the Office of Information Security does. We provide management of the state security program policy, standards, and procedures. That's all the governance for the executive branch. We publish that on a public website because, you know, transparency in this is also key. We need to let people know what steps we're taking to protect their information. We don't go into details. We don't publish configurations or anything like that, but we publish the security controls that we use. We're standing up right now an integrated risk management platform that will have a number of functions all working together. Chief among them, incident response coordination, and the governance pieces and audit pieces that we have. Incident response and threat intelligence is managed through my office, and that's in partnership with a managed SOC that provides 24/7, 365 eyes on our security logs and does event correlation and gives us alerts on anything that looks hinky. That's a security term. We provide security awareness training and assistance in continuity of operations and DR planning. We do vulnerability scanning and penetration testing on various assets within the state. We manage the physical security access card system, NCAS, and we establish and maintain the vision and strategy for the statewide security program. Next slide. Finally, one of the most important things I think that I do is chair the State Information Security Committee. This was established in 2001, and it's made up of information security officers from every executive branch agency. And really, it's this committee that establishes the security policy and standards for the state. We discuss the standards, we go through them, we do updates on them. And in fact, just today, we signed a revision to one of them into action. So, you know, it's an ongoing process. The committee started out with just representatives from the executive branch, but recently we've been able to invite in folks from the legislative and judicial branches, the National Guard, and NCHI. So we've sort of expanded the membership a little bit. What we do still only applies directly to the executive branch, but again, part of the whole idea of collaboration and more minds equals better security. Getting as many people in there to weigh in and discuss things with us. So that's my overview. Are there any questions? Okay, well, thank you.
I appreciate the re-emphasis on the cooperation, collaboration, communication piece. I think that that's the foundation of why this group is helpful in making sure that we're working together on all of the issues that may be coming up in our public, private, nonprofit partners across the state. So appreciate that and appreciate the overview and help throughout the process. So with that, unless there's any questions from members of the task force, I think we can close out agenda item number 7 and move to number 8, and that is the Nevada Office of the Military, the Nevada National Guard, Cybersecurity Joint Task Force, and I will pass it over to General Pearl.
Good afternoon, General Mike Pearl, the Director of the Joint Staff. for the Nevada National Guard, for the record. Here today to talk about the Nevada National Guard and the capability and the capacity by designing the Joint Task Force team that we have not had in the past, and how that's going to support our partners as well as the governor. The real thing is, this is a resource for the governor, for the state of Nevada. It provides additional capacity and capability for the state of Nevada in response to emergencies, if requested and approved. We also embed and work with and for incident commanders. I'm going to talk a little bit about that team from a military perspective. Next slide, please. So when we assess this and we look across what the Nevada National Guard brings to the state of Nevada for emergencies, we have an all hazard response playbook. And you can see that here. And when we assess this over the last year, we recognize that when you look at fire, wildland fires, rotary aircraft supporting those missions, when you look at our ability to respond to floods, the civil response, we have the QRFs, and we recognize that in that response capability package, that portfolio, we did not have a team that would be responsive to a cyber emergency or a cyber incident. So that's the focus of the JTF Cyber. We're going to talk a little bit more about it, but really it's about providing additional capability, capacity when our communities need it, or they run out of that capacity or capability. We're an asset. Next slide. When we started this, we looked at and we took a threat-based approach to really identify how we were going to build this team and where we were going to focus its effort across the entire spectrum of response. And when we look at it, there's two primary actors. There's those nation state actors that we're all very well aware of. In the next slide, we also have our transnational cyber criminals. And when you look at these, they've commoditized almost every aspect of the cyber criminal chain. And that's one of the key components that we looked at. Next slide. So, keep going, one more. So in our assessment, we looked at the most likely course of action for a cyber threat actor. And generally speaking, most likely is that cyber organized criminal actor through ransomware and other techniques. Our most dangerous course of action that we've discussed also are those nation state actors targeting our critical infrastructure in Nevada as well as the rest of the United States. And that's really how we based building out this team. Next slide. The first thing we did is we overlaid the cyber kill chain from a threat-based aspect. And then we overlaid that with the NIST framework so that way we could really figure out what this team's capability and capacity would initially be in response to a cyber emergency for the governor for the state of Nevada. Next slide. We came up with just a notional JTF cyber tasking cycle. This is very similar to any other response or request from a county or city. When they run out of that capacity and they need help, that request will come up through the emergency managers up to the Department of Emergency Management, and we will vet that. And if that is something that the National Guard can fill a role, and there's not other resources that better fit that role, then this is just a notional tasking cycle in which that team would mobilize and deploy in support of an incident commander, generally speaking, based off a response and recovery type of scenario. Next slide. We took a look at, and when we built this team, we said, what are we going to do for the state of Nevada and what type of resource do we want to provide to the state of Nevada? We have to be very realistic about what's our current capacity that we have of subject matter experts. How can the Guard be utilized? So we went back to two case studies, one in Texas and one in Louisiana. And we learned a lot by looking at those large scale cyber attacks that shut down their networks, predominantly their school system networks, about 2 weeks prior to school coming into session. And what we found were really two things. One was that the assessments, if we were able to take a proactive approach and assessments were done across our networks, they would have most likely found that there was a threat actor inside of their networks. And so that was one of the areas that we said we wanted to partner with with this team across all and collaborate with OCDC, with all the different agencies with CISA, to say we are an asset that can be leveraged to ensure that those assessments are being done under our state laws. And we can partner with that and help provide that extra expertise to ensure that our systems are secure. Number two, we found that in Louisiana and Texas, that after the cyber criminals already shut down the networks, there wasn't much that the National Guard could do to go in and defend those networks. Those networks have already been compromised. And so the approach that we said was, what did Texas and Louisiana do? Well, their entire signal cybersecurity warriors came in, about 100 in each state, and they rebuilt those networks. We have that capability, we have that capacity now to rebuild networks. And they got those networks back online in time for school to start with minimal disruption. Moving to the next slide. So the purpose of the JTF Cyber Task Force for Nevada is really to provide that additional support and an all hazards response. We're a partner. We want to ensure that with all the agencies that we're going to support, that trust and transparency of what we have and what we bring to the table is there. And the way we're going to do that, we're going to talk about the 3 LOEs here in a minute, but we're going to organize the capacities of the Nevada National Guard, both the Army and Air National Guard, cyber warriors, cyber trained soldiers, and airmen to build out this team. And really, the end state is to partner throughout the state to decrease that attack surface for all of Nevada as we partner with all the different agencies that are out there. And the approach that we're taking, and this is really about our lines of effort. Lines of effort 1 are really our Air and Army National Guards. Those 2 components are taking those soldiers and airmen, and they're identifying who are qualified to do this mission. And then they're going to provide those team members to LOE 2, which is our JTF. This is a specialized team. Right now, it's going to be about 20 to 30 members on that team that are organized to be able to assess and respond. The defense portion, we're going to build that capacity out over the next 2 years. It'll take some time to build that type, but that team will work directly for me. And if they are needed by the governor or in an emergency, we can deploy that team in support of an incident commander. The last line of effort is what we're doing today. Through the Office of the Military, through DEM, through all of our partners, we're coordinating our effort to ensure that there's that trust and transparency across all agencies. And we understand what we bring to the table. The key is we want to unify our efforts, unity of effort, to achieve and protect our networks for the state of Nevada. Next slide. This is generally how we're task organized. The bottom 2 quadrants, those really fall under the JTF team. We're pulling those from the both components, and we're going to have assessment teams as well as response teams. And what's great about this is we've already identified those soldiers and airmen right now. We've stood up the team. They're officially working together, and they have a training model over the next fiscal year, which has tabletops, exercises, and we have a large scale exercise in conjunction with Department of Defense called Cyber Shield that we'll be doing this summer. The intent behind that is to build out all those experts. So that way, when they integrate into a assessment or a response or a recovery type mission, if needed, they have the expertise to be able to do that and provide more capability and capacity to mitigate that emergency. So one of the new initiatives this year, just want to talk about is, and some of the other states across the United States have this, they have what's called a state active duty full-time force. And that augments their cyber team. And there's an initiative there that allows us then to have our state employees identified and on mission, working with all the different agencies to be a better partner, especially when it comes to our assessments and our eventual recovery and response aspects of the mission. Next slide. Right now, we're asking for 4 positions, and those 4 positions are really going to help us lay out the framework and become a better partner. Next slide. And then I'll just mention the last LOE, which is our line of effort 3. This is where the JTF cyber team integrates across the state through the Department of Emergency Management with the Office of Military under General Berry across all the different agencies to support them, integrate and work together as a partner. So we can build that capacity and capability to really reduce the attack surface and really about making sure that when an emergency occurs and it's a cyber emergency, that we can get through that with minimal damage to lives and our infrastructure. And pending any questions, that's all I have.
Thank you very much, General Pearl. Any questions from members of the task force? I know that it was just a short time ago that we were talking about this possibility of these capabilities coming online, and I want to thank you for the efforts to make sure that they happened and that we're getting to a point that they're ready to be deployed and active in the cybersecurity structure within the state.
And I'll just add 2 things if I can. You know, our partnership with OCDC and Akeem, as well as CISA, that partnership has already started, and our soldiers and airmen are working with them. We've had our first cyber warrior who was certified through CISA, and we plan on being able to do that with a few more of our members of that team, which really gets after having the capacity for these assessments and what our role will be in that. Look forward to the partnership. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you. I think with that, unless there's any questions after that comment, we can close out agenda item number 8 and move on to agenda item number 9 with the Division of Emergency Management and Homeland Security. That's over to you, John.
Thank you, Tim. John Backett, for the record. So this is a quick breakdown on consequence management versus crisis management to help everyone on this group identify and understand what Division of Emergency Management's role is and what we can bring to the table to help support subject matter experts like yourselves. So if you look at the handout that was provided to you, at the top, the division utilizes this particular diagram created by FEMA called Lifelines. And this is how we do our situational awareness to help people identify which particular sector may be impacted by whatever the incident may be. Because in our world, an incident is an incident. We stand up and we support information and resource sharing and coordination to help support the group. So when you see it all as blue, it's just the layout as to what the SITREP situational report would look like. If it's all green, it means everything's fine and dandy. When it turns yellow, it means that a particular sector has been impacted, but is still able to work through the current issues. If it turns red, there's a complete failure and that particular sector is not working. When you look back at COVID support that we had early on, our health sector was red because we didn't have a way out of it at the time. As we developed testing and vaccinating efforts, we converted that to a yellow and then eventually got back to green as healthcare was all up and able to support themselves and no longer needed an emergency management perspective to help support them. Cyber would be enacted the same way. So as you go partway down the handout to section number 2, the crisis management versus consequence management, the cyber experts are those that would be dealing with particularly the technical aspects with the organization, the association, the jurisdiction, whoever's impacted, to help them deal with the actual cyber threat. Emergency management would be focused on those consequences. If it were to take place on the power grid, for instance, right now we're dealing with the LP issues with the liquid propane, coordinating the side effects of that and how we can reduce the impacts after something has happened is the main focus of emergency management. If you proceed on to the second page, it breaks down the individual focus of crisis and consequence management. And I'll go to letter D. The consequence management is not just emergency management in general, but we have those 17 emergency support functions that Chief Fogerson spoke about earlier. And effectively, ESF or emergency support function 17 is cyber. But as we advance through this document, you'll see cyber touches a multitude of the ESF functions. Number 3 for the Nevada Operations Center activations, we activate for a number of different reasons, but in this particular case, it would be a lot of the information sharing aspects to make sure those that need to know would be getting the information they need. We did this morning with snow and weather impacts to try to coordinate efforts across all the jurisdictions as well as state partners. But we also have a very large public information capacity to be able to share and utilize the information that this group, the Cybersecurity Task Force or OCDC or EATS or any other alphabet soup may want to share through us. We have a very large format that we can get information out to those that need to know to hopefully reduce those impacts farther down the line. Goes through the next page on a bunch of different responsibilities. Our responsibility is to help plan for in our preparedness efforts, respond to should anything happen, help support this group or anyone else, recover from and hopefully mitigate these events from happening again. That's what our basic mission areas are under emergency management. If you go to the next page, the emergency support functions are spelled out with ESF 1 through 17. We're talking about IT and cyber effects. This is where you can see that under ESF 2 communications and IT, very large cyber touch point. Then we go to ESF 14 cross-sector business and infrastructure. Again, everything that cyber is run through SCADA systems impacts our critical infrastructure. And then the last one, ESF 17, I didn't even put a paragraph there because it's going to be fully inundated with the actual response and support and trying to overcome the cyber effects, while emergency management in general is trying to focus on, again, that information and intelligence sharing, getting resources out to those that may need it, whether it be the National Guards team, whether it be some sort of private sector contract that we hire through the event to help facilitate or support local government, private industry, or again, some jurisdiction, whether it be local, city, or tribal government. So I hope that this clarifies and identifies the different approaches we take in emergency management, where again, we are not cyber experts. We will not be knee deep in what people's plans are, what their codes are, and everything else. We're going to be there to help you coordinate your planning efforts, make sure that you have your cards ready to play, and then help you through those response and recovery efforts by sharing your information and getting the resources you may need after the incident were to occur. So pending any questions, that's it.
Thank you very much, John. Any questions for John from members of the task force? Awesome. Well, thank you very much, John. Always impressive to see the efforts of DEM and the ability to coordinate with state, local, federal partners and private sector, public sector, whatever it needs to be. You guys are always on the ground making it happen. So appreciate that. Appreciate the overview of what you guys do and how you do it. With that, I think we can close out agenda item number 9 and move on to agenda item number 10, our second and final round of public comment. Is there any public comment in the room? For a reminder for those joining online, the information to call in for public comment is on the agenda. And we'll give about 30 seconds for the YouTube to catch up. And it is *6 to unmute yourself if you have any public comment on the phone. Awesome. Well, hearing no public comment, I think we are ready to move to a motion for adjournment. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Thank you, James. We have a second.
Second.
Thank you, Frank. Take your second. All those in favor of adjournment, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Awesome. Thank you all very much. I appreciate the time and appreciate the work that went into making sure that we're all informed about the strategies going forward and how the work is going to happen. So thank you all very much and have a great day.